It's a pleasure to be here to read for the Gulf Coast reading series. Hello to my friends in Texas who might be watching this, and hello to all new friends and listeners. Thank you for inviting me into your space. It's always a privilege to read to anybody and to attentive listeners. I'm going to read from Guillotine, my book, which just came out in August, and I'm going to begin with the poems where the lyric speaker has this question, this problem, this complication in their life. What happens to a person when they fall in love, when they desire another person who can return that feeling? What happens to that desire, that yearning? Does it become a weight? Does it become a portal? What does it become, right? How do you navigate that extraness, that weight of desire and yearning? A lot of the poems, especially the I-centered poems in Guillotine, deal with that kind of question. The first poem I'm going to read is titled Autobiography of My Hungers. The title is taken from a memoir by Rigoberto Gonzalez, one of my mentors. And it sets the stage. It's like the keystone for the rest of the I-centered poems, for the rest of the unrequited love poems. Autobiography of My Hungers. His beard, an avalanche of honey, an avalanche of thorns. In a bar too close to the Pacific, he said, I don't love you, but not because I couldn't be attracted to you. Liar, even my soul is pot-bellied. Thinness in my mind equals the gay men on the nightly news, kissed by death and public scorn. The anchorman declaring weight loss is one of the first symptoms. The Portuguese have a word for imaginary, never to be experienced love. Whoop-de-doo. I don't love you, he said. The words flung him back. In his eyes, I saw it. To another bar, where a woman sidestepped his desire. Another hunger, our friendship. In 10th grade, weeks after my first kiss, my mother said, you're looking thinner. That evening, I smuggled a cake into my room. I ate it with my hands, licked buttercream off my thumbs until I puked. Desire with no future, bitter longing. I starved myself by yearning for intimacy that doesn't and won't exist. Holding hands on a ferry, tracing with the tip of my tongue a jawline. In a bar too close to the Pacific, he said, I don't love you, but not because I couldn't be attracted to you. His beard, an avalanche of thorns, an avalanche of honey. This next poem is the title poem, Guillotine. I had the word guillotine in my mind, in my skull, inside of me for a long time, years ago. And usually when I dwell with a word or a phrase for a bit, something else sparks, right? Another image or another line, and then I draft and I can begin drafting something. But for some reason, the word guillotine wasn't giving me anything. It just stayed there lodged, rebellious. So one day at a coffee shop, I just sat down and wrote the word guillotine in my handwriting all over a whole page, filled the whole page with the word guillotine. Then I looked at the page and I said, what do you see? And I saw in the tangle of my cursive scorpions. And then I said to myself, what else do you see? And then I saw something else. And that image is the kind of the controlling metaphor of the poem. Guillotine. The scorpions always arrive at dawn. Gently, the pincers touch the cuts on my lips. I clutch the edges of the mattress, stare at the mirrored ceiling. My mouth opens, but no sound staggers out. The scorpions, dark green, dank, reach in, pull out the razor blade under my tongue. Two scorpions, a razor blade, slowly, in unison, without letting go of the metal, they move. A little guillotine making its way down my body. I remember dragging my thumb through his beard, coppery and difficult, The scorpion's paws tilt the blade, a threat, a reminder. It's my task to stop yearning for as long as it takes them to carry a blade across my skin. My thoughts swerve from monsoon storms to accordions to pecan groves. The little guillotine starts moving again. I begin to sense the enormity of my body, the blade high in the air for now. This next poem is titled Questions for My Body. Why are you nocturnal? How many cathedrals have you entered? Has cruelty ever saved you? Do you remember the length of his thumbs? Isn't that enough cake? Have you ever soaked your feet in gasoline? Do you still fear the virus? How can you sleep in this heat? Is that a soul patch? Did you laugh or cry at Keats' grave? Have you been claimed? Blackwater. I spit his name out and 4 wolves appear. Black, eyes silvery, ears skinned and tense. They thrash their tails twice, then rush toward me. A dark pouring. I stagger back, raise my arms. I'd watch him lather his beard once a week for a year. An oval mirror held him and doubled his gestures. His hands quick, odic. The wolves now closer, close. Their stench arrives first, decaying meat, feces, an eye-watering stink that severs me from hunger. The wolves crash into me, furious paws, teeth hot and notched, manes teeming with dirt. Briefly, I'm fording Blackwater. Briefly, I forget his face. Then they vanish. I spin around, nothing but sand and sky the color of clay. Even the stench is gone. I tremble and tremble, raw my limbs. Then I hear the mirror in a room miles away, furred with frost and lust. It howls. The next poem borrows a title from Emerson's essay on circles, and it's a 2-part poem. And I wanted the first part to be very energetic, move from image to statement, have kind of an associative logic at play. And I wanted the second section to be rich with stillness, non-movement. So I wanted to have those kind of 2 kind of states kind of collide, provide some tension in the work. And the end of part 2 quotes and rewords something said by Saint Augustine. Also, in the first part, in my first book, in my second book, I always like to include a handful of words that I cannot pronounce properly, just to remind myself that language will have the last say, that we think we're kind of controlling language, but no, even there are words we can't pronounce, right? So at that level that they have that little control over us still. And in the first section, they're medical terms. So you'll see. Around every circle, another can be drawn. 1. In 10th grade, I kissed a guy who called me a faggot once or twice a week. I still see his voice. 6 hummingbirds nailed to a wall. In an olive grove outside of Fuente Grande in 1936, a teacher, 2 bullfighters, and Federico Garcia Lorca were shot to death by fascist soldiers. During the Reagan years, I sweated out new language, capsicum, febril, oral candaces. Last summer in Sevilla, I flirted with a stranger. He pinched my belly, walked away laughing. Later, along Calle Arjona, a remix of Girls Just Want to Have Fun poured out of a passing taxicab. Shut the fuck up, Cyndi Lauper, I yelled. Mala copa, joder. The soldier who shot Lorca bragged he'd fired 2 bullets into his ass for being queer. For years, I desired a man who didn't desire me. He was gentle with my lust. I never thanked him. I'm thanking him now. But once, in a splinter-rich booth, he held my hand, a kindness I can't forgive. 2. Diminished but quick, I sprint into the desert toward a dust devil slowly twisting along a canal. I step into the grit and whirl, not dust after all, but a spiral of locusts. Each a coil of gold, oiled with honey. Long hind legs click, click, click. Not one skims my skin. A thunderhead on the horizon shimmers. Half-built cathedral. What a saint said about God, I believe about loneliness. A circle whose center is everywhere, and its circumference nowhere. I'm going to end with 2 poems. This is a short little poem I wrote in southern Spain a couple years ago in Granada, where one of the family homes of the Federica Garcia Lorca's family is there in a park named after, of course, Lorca. And I spent a few days wandering through that park, ravenous, desiring, wanting any kind of spiritual contact with the ghosts, the presence of Federico Garcia Lorca. It didn't happen, but I did manage to write these lines. There are 5 lines, and each of the lines ends with a phrase in italics, and I kind of imagine that in my mind being Lorca's retort or response to each line. Lines written at Federico Garcia Lorca Park. In the cage of my thumbprint, I keep my 3rd wish. Acoustic winter. Rain undresses music. Rain undresses his voice. Arrow and minaret. Beneath my palm, the wiry fur of lust. Open, body, open. A wound is a self-reporting instrument. Silver filigree. I sleep with his face under my tongue. Scab on water. This last poem is actually, I think, if I remember correctly, is the first poem I wrote when I moved to New York City in 2012. So it's the first poem I actually wrote post Slow Lightning. And it's a very raw, intimate poem. It's the first poem in the book. But once I finished writing it in 2012, I kept it from publication for 2 or 3 years because it felt too intimate for me. I shouldn't be saying this out loud, I said to myself. But then there was then enough distance there between me and the poem that I was able to let it go. This is titled Ceremonial. This is the last poem I'm reading, so thank you all for your attention, and thank you again for the invite into your space. Ceremonial. Delirious, touch-starved, I pinch a mole on my skin, pull it off like a bead. I pinch and pull until I am holding a black rosary. Prayer will not cool my fever. Prayer will not melt my belly fat, will not thin my thighs. A copper-faced man once called me beautiful. Stupid, stupid man. I am obese. I am worthless. I can still feel his thumb, warm, burrowed, moving in my mouth. His thumbnail, a flake of sugar he would not allow me to swallow. Desperate for the sting of snow on my skin, rosary tight in my fist, I walk into a closet, crawl into a wedding dress. Oh Lord, here I am. Thank you.